Light the match. Strike 13. Watch the world burn. The box. The rain came down in steady sheets as James Carter stood on the porch of the old Mason estate, clutching a damp manila envelope in one hand and a tarnished brass key in the other. The house had been abandoned for nearly 20 years, ever since Edgar Mason, his estranged great-uncle, was found hanging in the attic with his eyes gouged out and a burned circle drawn beneath him. The will had only just surfaced. James, broke and jobless, was named the sole inheritor. The first thing he noticed upon entering was the smell: mildew, scorched wood, and something older, like burnt meat mixed with rot. The furniture was covered in dust and white sheets, but everything was eerily intact, as if someone had just stepped out for a moment. In the study, he found the box. It was sitting neatly in the center of the old oak desk. A matchbox, black with gold trim, ornate, almost regal. The words etched into its surface in fine lettering read, "For illumination of the hidden flame, strike with purpose." Curious, James slid it open. 13 matches, each with a deep red head that shimmered like blood in candlelight. He pocketed it without thinking. The first flame. That night, unable to sleep in the dusty bed upstairs, James wandered the halls with a bottle of whiskey. His flashlight began flickering. The house groaned. It felt too quiet. He remembered the matchbox. Sitting on the staircase, he struck the first match. The flame was immediate, unnaturally bright and cold, cold like a winter wind slicing through the walls. Then he saw her, just for a split second, a girl, young, pale, standing in the hallway mirror, staring straight at him with eyes like burned holes. The match went out. She vanished. James froze. A dream? A trick of the light? The next morning, the hallway mirror was cracked, split down the middle, as if struck by a hammer. Rules unwritten. He told himself it was just stress, isolation, maybe the whiskey. But the matchbox called to him. He struck a second match the following night. This time, he heard whispers. Faint, dozens of voices whispering his name from behind the walls, under the floorboards. A child cried. A man screamed once, and then silence. He threw the match away, but when he went to sleep, he dreamed of fire, walls melting, screams, a horn silhouette standing just beyond the flames. He woke up to find ash on his pillow. By the fifth strike, the dreams became memories, not his own. Past the threshold. Each night, James would strike another match. Something compelled him, some pull beyond reason. Match number 6. He saw Edgar Mason, naked and bloodied, carving a symbol into the floorboards, the same symbol James would find later burned into his bedroom ceiling. Match number 7. The girl returned. This time, she whispered something to him before her mouth unhinged unnaturally wide and a swarm of black moths flew out. Match number 8. No flame appeared. Only darkness. Pure, suffocating black. He couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. Then the flame returned with a snap, and James was lying on the kitchen floor, hours later, with soot on his hands. Each strike came with a vision. Each flame peeled away a layer of reality. The world was unraveling. He tried to destroy the box out. He burned it in the fireplace. It reappeared on the dining table the next morning, clean, full, unmarked. Countdown, James researched everything he could: occult texts, Mason family history, online forums. He found scattered references to a legend, a ritual lost to time. The Matchbox of Hellfire, one article called it, a cursed artifact from pre-Sumerian lore, said to belong to a flamekeeper, a human key. 13 strikes, 13 layers of the veil. At the 13th, the door opens. Whatever lay beyond was never described, only warnings. The box chooses. Do not finish the count. To strike 13 is to offer the world in kindling. But it was too late. He had already struck 10. The town burns. By the 11th match, things left the visions. The girl began appearing during the day. James would find her reflection watching him in spoons, windows, puddles. She started whispering names, people from the town. They began dying. A car crash, a heart attack. A man burned alive in his garage. James recognized each one. They'd all visited the Mason estate over the years, before it was abandoned. Each death followed a strike. Match at 12 was the worst yet. The walls of the house bled, real red wet blood. His eyes bled, his ears, the mirrors shattered on their own. And still, the match burned cold. He stayed awake for 3 days, terrified to strike the last one. But the box waited, and the box whispered. The 13th strike. The night of July 13th, James sat in the study, matchbox in hand. Outside, lightning tore the sky. The town had gone dark. No power, no phones. The last match was heavier than the others, as if it knew its purpose. James held it over the desk. His hand shook. The box sang a low guttural hum like breathing fire. "I won't," he whispered, but the match moved. His fingers, not his own, struck it. The flame exploded, not up but down, into the desk, into the floor, into the house. The entire structure trembled. The lights returned, not electric, but hellish, red-orange glow flooding every crack, and then the 13th strike was complete. The door. The floor split open, beneath it a spiral staircase carved into black stone. From below came heat and screams. James, weeping, descended. Each step was a heartbeat, each breath burned. At the bottom stood a door, no handle, no lock, just flesh. Breathing, pulsing flesh. It spoke, "You lit the way, or you opened the gate. The world is ready." Hands emerged from the walls, from the door itself, and pulled James in. Epilogue. The fire spread across Mason Estate. By morning, nothing was left but charred earth. James was never found. But 2 weeks later, a box arrived at the local library, addressed to the next bearer. Inside, a matchbox, black, gold-trimmed, 13 matches, 12 remain. Tagline. For every wish, a soul burns. Won the package, Lena lived alone in a cramped apartment on the outskirts of Denver. Her job at the gas station barely paid the bills, and the constant stress gnawed at her like rats chewing through insulation. Her mother was dead. Her father had disappeared years ago. She had no one. So when the package arrived, she assumed it was a mistake. No sender, no postage, just her name, Lena Green, typed on a yellowing envelope taped to the front. Inside was a matchbox, jet black, smooth as stone. Strange symbols were etched into its surface in gold, swirling like smoke caught midair. No branding, no explanation. She opened it. 13 matches, each with a red head glinting like blood in candlelight. Tucked beneath them, a folded note. Light a flame, make a wish, the price will be paid. She laughed at first, thinking it was a joke. By the next night, she wasn't laughing. 2. The first wish. She hadn't planned on using it. But desperation is a cruel motivator. Her rent was due in 3 days. Her hours had been cut, her fridge was empty. She held the matchbox in her trembling hands, sitting on her floor in the flickering light of a dying bulb. She hesitated, then pulled out a match and struck it. The flame was silent, eerily still, like it existed outside wind or air. The shadows recoiled from it. "I want enough money to pay rent this month," she whispered. The flame died instantly. Nothing happened. She sighed, embarrassed, and went to bed. In the morning, her landlord knocked. "About your rent," he said gruffly. "There was a wire transfer. Whole thing, plus interest. Anonymous. Guess you've got a rich friend." Lena stood there, stunned. Then she smiled. 3. The price that evening, she learned about the fire. An apartment complex across town had gone up in flames. No survivors. 27 people dead. She didn't think much of it until she saw the photo. One of the victims, Sarah Meyer, had gone to high school with her. They'd lost touch after a fight. Sarah had gotten rich, smug, successful. Lena remembered thinking, why her and not me? Now Sarah was dead, burned alive. And Lena had exactly the amount of rent money Sarah had flaunted on social media just weeks ago. Her stomach twisted. 4. Greed is a flame. She told herself it was coincidence, but she didn't throw the box away. On the 3rd night, she used it again. "I want a better job." The next morning, her manager called to say he'd quit unexpectedly. Lena was promoted to shift supervisor with a pay bump and more hours. That same day, a woman named Denise, a regular at the station, was found in her home, dead. Smoke inhalation, electrical fire. Lena had joked the week before about how Denise's job at the hardware store looked perfect. She screamed into her pillow that night. 5. The second note. After her 4th wish, "I want a car," she walked outside to find a pristine used sedan parked in her complex's lot. Keys on her doorstep, title in her name. On the news, a fiery crash. A family of 3 incinerated on the highway. The same make and model, same color. When she returned inside, there was something new in the matchbox. Another note. The flame does not lie. Mercy is debt. The world balances. Every gift. A grave. There were 9 matches left, and her hands were shaking. 6. Confession. She tried to tell someone, her friend Candace, over cheap wine and tears. Candace listened, then laughed nervously. "You sure you're okay?" Lena showed her the box. Candace joked, "If it works, wish for my student loans." She didn't believe her. That night, in a fit of guilt and fear, Lena lit another match. I wish Candace's loans were gone. She regretted it before the flame died. The next day, Candace was found in her bathtub, electrocution. Her apartment had faulty wiring, a known issue she couldn't afford to fix. Lena collapsed. There were 8 matches left. 7, a voice in the flame. The nightmares came then, violent, endless. She walked through cities made of ash with blackened corpses pointing at her, mouths stretched open in silent screams. The matches whispered when she held them, not in words but in feelings. Hunger, fire, judgment. She realized something. She wasn't paying the price. Someone else always did. The box was giving, but it was feeding on people, on lives. She considered burning it, crushing it, burying it in concrete. But every time she reached for it, it was already in her pocket. 8, the wrong wish. Desperate, she made one more wish. I want to undo it, all of it. The flame sputtered violently. The lights exploded. When she opened her eyes, the apartment was fine. Nothing broken. The box still sat on her table. But her phone buzzed. News articles, obituaries, fires, nothing had changed. She hadn't undone the deaths. She had only added another, a house across the street. Gone. A man she'd never met, burned to death in his sleep. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat on the floor, staring at the box. 7 matches left. 9, her father. On a whim, she looked up her father. Dead, apparently, found in an abandoned motel. Unidentified for years until dental records confirmed it. She didn't remember him much. He left when she was 6. She never forgave him. Now, though, she wondered. Had he used the box? Had he made his wishes, paid the price? Had he sent it to her? There was no way to know, unless she used it again. 10, fire for love match number 8. I want to talk to my father. The flame flared green. For the first time, it screamed. Her phone rang immediately. Unknown number. She answered with trembling fingers. A voice spoke, raspy, distant, layered in static. Lena. She dropped the phone. The voice kept coming, even from the dead line. You lit the fire. You called me back. You shouldn't have. What is this? She sobbed. You can't stop it. You're the flame now. Then silence. The phone melted in her hand. 11. The final choice. She had 5 matches left. Each one buzzed with heat, even unlit. The shadows in her apartment moved on their own. The walls pulsed like lungs. She decided she would not strike again. She packed the box in a metal tin, wrapped it in chains, locked it in a safe, buried the safe in the woods. She moved, changed her name, cut ties with everything. For 2 years, she lived quietly. No wishes, no fire. 12. The return. One night, she came home to find a package on her doorstep. Same wrapping, same yellowed envelope. Her name on the front. Inside, the box. 5 matches remaining. No note, just the smell of smoke. Third epilogue. She lives alone again now. She hasn't used the matches, not yet, but they call to her in her sleep. Whispers in the radiator. Footsteps on the ceiling. And sometimes when the wind dies and the night is still, she swears she hears voices screaming from inside the matchbox. Tagline. The flame knows your sins. Inherited. Ethan Wyatt was used to old things. As a freelance antique appraiser, he'd inherited, cataloged, and sold everything from Civil War muskets to porcelain death masks. But when his grandfather died, leaving behind the decrepit farmhouse in Kansas, Ethan found something that didn't belong to any century he could recognize. It was hidden behind a false wall in the bedroom closet. A small black box, smooth and cold, sitting on a red velvet cloth. The matchbox. He might have dismissed it as junk, except for the note pinned beside it. Do not strike after midnight. The handwriting was familiar. His grandfather's. Ethan rolled his eyes. More ghost stories, Pop? He tossed it in his coat pocket. The flame. The farmhouse had no electricity. He was staying the weekend to organize the estate for sale. Candlelight cast long shadows across the walls as he wandered room to room, whiskey in hand. At 11:47 p.m., he sat by the kitchen window and remembered the matchbox. Curious, he pulled it out. It was heavier than expected. Inside were 13 matches, with red-black heads that shimmered when they caught the candlelight. An unnatural shimmer, like oil on water. He lit one. The flame was tall, blue at its base, dancing without heat. And in the kitchen window's reflection, he saw someone standing behind him. He spun around. Nothing. The flame died. The room was cold. 3, strike 2. The next morning, he told himself it was a trick of the light. He was tired. Maybe the whiskey had played with his senses. But when night fell again and the shadows thickened, the matchbox called to him. At 11:59 p.m., he struck the second match. This time, the flame whispered. It didn't speak words, not exactly. But something stirred in the back of his mind. Memories he hadn't thought of in years. Faces, accusations, blood. Then he saw the reflection again. This time it was him. But not quite. The man in the window moved a second late, like a faulty video loop. Then it smiled, wide and wrong, and pointed a finger at him. Ethan dropped the match. It went out. He didn't sleep that night. Lobster 4, Sins remembered the third night he struck a match at 12:03 a.m. He thought he could handle it. He was wrong. As the flame flared, a stench filled the room, burnt hair, scorched skin. He gagged, backed away from the match, but something held him still. His voice echoed from the walls. You promised she was just a fling. You promised you wouldn't hurt her. The flame grew. Images exploded in his mind. Him, drunk, yelling. A girl crying. Screams. Blood. He hadn't thought of Ashley in years. The restraining order. The overdose. He fell to the ground, weeping. The match nose. By the fourth strike, the shadows came alive. They began following him during the day. Lurking in mirrors, reflections, even puddles. They moved when he didn't. Smiled when he frowned, watched him sleep. He smashed every mirror in the house, covered windows. Still they came. The matchbox never left his side. Even when he tried to throw it away, burn it, bury it, it would reappear on his nightstand, humming softly. He stopped checking the time. He knew what he was going to do anyway. 6. The mirror room. The fifth match took him back, not metaphorically, physically. The moment the flame was lit, the world around him dissolved. He was 16 again. Standing in his high school's music room, his friend Luke tied to a chair, crying. Ethan laughed, his younger self, holding a lighter, threatening. The scene played on without him. The matchbox was showing him everything he'd buried, every sin, every cruelty, every shameful act he'd justified. Luke's burns had never healed. He dropped out, disappeared. The flame went out, and Ethan was back in the kitchen, vomiting into the sink. The warning revisited. He reread the note. Do not strike after midnight. He realized the warning wasn't about timing. It was about threshold. Something was waiting on the other side of that hour. The matchbox didn't punish right away. It revealed. Prepared. It made you light your own way to hell. Ethan counted the remaining matches. 8 left. He promised himself he wouldn't light another. The 6th strike. He lit another. He didn't mean to. He didn't want to. But at 12:13 a.m., his body moved on its own. The match struck. He saw his mother, not the warm, broken woman who raised him, but her last night alive. She begged him for money. He'd refused, slammed the door in her face. She overdosed in a parking lot 12 hours later. He blamed the system, the pills, everything but himself. Now the flame showed her lying there, dead, alone, face purple. It whispered one word, yours, he screamed. The flame didn't care. 9, the replacement. The reflections got bolder. By the 7th strike, they moved freely through the house. One sat across from him at dinner. Another stood at the foot of his bed at night, watching. They looked like him, talked like him, but they smiled like monsters, and sometimes they moved before he did. One night, he blinked and found himself watching through the mirror as his reflection sat on the bedding. I'm almost done, it whispered. 10, the 12th hour. He counted again. Only 3 matches left. 3 layers of guilt. 3 doors left unopened. But the reflections didn't want to wait. They surrounded him now, 10 versions of him, all wrong, all burning behind the eyes. They circled him as he curled into himself on the floor, chanting softly, one more, one more, one more. He screamed, cried, begged. They didn't care, because they weren't him anymore. The 11th, the last, midnight. Exactly. He struck the 13th match. No more visions, no more whispers, only silence. The world bent, time cracked, the flame expanded, devouring the room in quiet, radiant fire, and the reflection stepped forward solid, smiling. You've made peace, it said. No, Ethan whispered. You gave me everything I needed. The reflection reached out and took the matchbox. You're free. Then Ethan felt it, his body crumbling, melting. He reached out, his hand passed through the real world like smoke. His reflection waved goodbye, then walked away. Little 12, epilogue. When the estate agent arrived 2 weeks later, the house was empty. No signs of anyone living there, except for one thing: a matchbox, black and gold, sitting on the kitchen table, 12 matches, and a new note: do not strike after midnight.